This is the Brown Duke Gun Show. My name is JP Garcia, here today with Brandon Elias, and today we are going to talk about purchasing NFA items, right? Super popular topic right now. A lot of people purchasing stuff. I'm purchasing stuff. Brandon's purchasing stuff, right? It's a great time to do it because the NFA wait times, the processing wait times are so low right now. Oh, hold on. Crap. All right, hang on. We're going to do this. I think I'm going to keep this in the show. Hang on. Barney's calling. Let's see.
JP.
Barney, you are on the Brown Duke Gun Show live with Brandon.
Then I guess I better keep my comments to myself.
What are you doing, man? We just started recording.
I'm sorry?
We just started recording.
Are you recording right now?
Yeah. You're going to be on the show.
Then I can't tell you what I'm doing.
Okay. Let me call you later.
Okay, bye.
All right. He's going to kill me. I'm actually going to pull this on show. All right, let's try again. Okay, this is the Brown Duke Gun Show. My name is JP Garcia, here today with Brandon Elias, and we're going to talk about something really popular today. We're going to talk about how to acquire NFA items, right? These are super popular right now. The NFA processing wait times are really low. So it's a good time, if you're interested in buying a silencer or a short barrel rifle or anything of that nature. We'll get into it. We'll go through the step-by-step process. Brandon does this at his store every day. And I think, at a high level, if you're going to buy an NFA item, you should probably do it now.
Yeah.
Right?
Right now is a great time to buy NFA stuff. Wait times used to be like a year for Form 4s. Now they're like within a month, typically for individuals, which is a huge eye-opening for a lot of people. Because a lot of people constantly say, like, hey, I'd get a silencer, but I don't want to get one because it waits too long, right? Because it kind of sucks. Like, you put up all that money, and then you have to wait a year before you actually get the product. Mm-hmm. Our place was a little bit better because since we have a range, you can go ahead, like, once you purchase it, you can go ahead and shoot it. You just can't leave the store with it because it has to stay in the facility until you get approved.
Right.
But I would let people shoot it and things like that. That way they can get an idea. They can get their gun set up for it. And come in and have like conjugal visits, right, as we call them. But they had to could not take it home until they got approved. But now, we have some of them that come back within 8 hours.
Wow, really?
It's insane. We submit it one day, the next morning it's approved.
Yeah.
Not saying yours is gonna be like that. I still have some that are 9 months, a year or so, that were done way back then. But now the new ones that are getting done, they're usually coming back super, super fast.
Wow,
yeah, it's crazy.
Cool. Yeah. So I think today, one of the things that you get asked a lot about at the store is what's the process, right? And so, we're going to go step by step into, each of the things that you need to know when you're purchasing an NFA item.
And if anybody doesn't know what an NFA item is, it'd be like a silencer, a sharp barreled rifle, anything that's under 16 inches barrel length on a rifle type of gun. Sharp barrel shotgun, anything less than 18 inches for a shotgun would be a sharp barrel shotgun. Machine guns, you can get those. Anything that was made before 1986 is before the ban happened. So there's transferable machine guns that you can purchase. Usually they're purchased on Gunbroker from someone else that has them already, right? Or some type of other avenue. But you can't purchase them new. You can't purchase machine guns
and they're not cheap.
They're not cheap. Yeah, transferable ones are more like an investment because once they put in the ban, you can't make any more. They can't make any more that's transferable. I can make machine guns. I'm a 07 FFL, so I'm a manufacturer of firearms. I have an SOT attached to it, which means I can make machine guns, but I cannot sell them to you.
Right.
I can only sell them to a police department that would want to purchase them, right? So it kind of takes away any new machine guns that's coming into the line or into the inventory. So that way, anybody who has them, as years go on, if some of them break or get destroyed or whatever it might be, those values of those machine guns go up in value. So a lot of people buy them for investment pieces now.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So, perfect. So that's the, that's what an NFA item is, right? They're regulated. They're outside of normal firearms. You could go into a very deep hole in figuring out why that is the case. But I think we'll save you all the trouble and just say, These just are regulated. There's a different process for buying them.
And they're registered. Like they're a registered item. So like regular firearms, people come in all the time. It's like, hey, how do I transfer this gun from my name to this person's name? It's like there's no registration for firearms, right? It's not like a vehicle where they can pull up the serial number and say, hey, it is possessed by this person. Like they don't have that database. They can track it down. They can trace it, with an NFA trace or NICS trace, but there's no registration. On a NFA item, there is a registration for that item.
Right. Yeah. So, okay. So when you purchase these items, if the first thing you need to do, number one is identify what you want to buy, right? Yep. I think that's pretty clear. And I think we're going to have a show upcoming that talks about one of the most popular things people buy are the silencers, right? Yeah. And we'll talk about the differences between silencers, pistol versus rifle. There's a whole, there's a whole different conversation that needs to be had about what you want to buy. But let's just assume that you know what you want to buy, right? The second step is figuring out which forms to fill out. So when I started this, I didn't know that there were so many forms. So
there's tons of forms out there. I use a few of them. I don't use all of them, but there's some for manufacturers that you have to submit to let them know how much guns you made that year.
Right.
There's a form 1 is like for a person that's going to manufacture a firearm, like a regular individual. So if I want to manufacture a silencer or if I want to manufacture a sharp-barreled rifle, I can do that. But I have to notify them and let them know, like, hey, this is what I want to do. They have to approve it. Then I make it. Right. So that's a form 1. Those are not as popular, so they usually come back a little bit sooner, even whenever the wait times are a little bit longer. People would do them and they wouldn't be too long, maybe a couple months or so. But let's say if I have an AR-15 pistol and I want to turn it into a sharp-barreled rifle, that would be a form 1.
Right. Okay. So, and that's going to be your use case general. And most people who are listening to this are not going to make their own silencers.
Right.
Right. So this is really just, if you have a rifle that you want to become a short barrel rifle, then you would use the form 1 to manufacture, essentially convert that regular rifle into a short barrel rifle.
Yep.
Yeah.
Form 2s are for manufacturers of firearms that hold an FFL that want to produce an NFA item, a silencer, machine gun, sharp-barreled rifle, anything like that. I do use those. But if you don't have a 07 FL, you wouldn't use that.
Right.
Form 3 would be from dealer to dealer transfer. So if you're a firearms dealer and you want to transfer it to me, it still has to go through an NFA process. You can't just ship it to me automatically, not like a firearm, right? So you have to fill out a Form 3 with the ATF. The ATF has to approve it. Then you can ship it out.
Okay.
Right. Form 4 is the most popular one. That's probably what you're going to do is you're purchasing a NFA item that's already manufactured. So you purchasing a silencer that was manufactured by a big company, a sharp-barreled rifle, sharp-barreled shotgun, anything like that. If you're transferring a pre-banned machine gun from one person to another person, it's a Form 4. Silencer from one person to another person is a Form 4. That's the most popular one. And then there's 2 different ways that you can do that, I guess. One would be some type of entity, so like a trust or an LLC or something like that.
Right.
Or there's individual forms too.
Okay.
Right. The most popular one is individual forms. That's where I'd suggest right now if it's for like a silencer or something like that, because those items usually don't go up in value. Right. Like a silencer is very difficult to sell. So if they're coming back a whole lot faster in wait times if you go individual. But once you purchase a silencer, once you shoot it, the value of it is almost nothing, right?
Right.
Like it's cut in half at least because for you to sell it, you'd have to do another Form 4 and pay the $200 tax stamp again. So every item is a $200 tax stamp. That's another question we get asked a lot. It's like, hey, once I go through this form one time, can I just buy as many items as I want? No, it's not a license, right?
Right.
It's not like where something you go through one time, they get you approved and you can buy whatever you want. Each item has to be approved and each item requires a tax.
Right.
And they said this tax way long ago, and $200 at that time was a lot of money. It kept that way, so now it's like, hey, it's doable. Like I can buy this and pay the $200 tax stamp and get this item. So every item you have, if you have 5 silencers, you have 5 Form 4s and 5 $200 tax stamps to fill out.
Now, and keep in mind that if you decide that you want to have a short barrel rifle with the silencer, that's 2 stamps, right? Because you need a stamp for the rifle itself, and then you need another stamp for the silencer.
Correct.
So, yeah. So, going back, before we dig into NFA Trust versus solo, where do people find these, right? Because now, we were talking about earlier, the online form is the way to go, right? Yeah. But there are still two ways. You can do the online form, which means you have to create an account with
it's eForms, NFAeforms.com.
Okay. Yeah. And you can do that, or you can also do it by paper, right? So, and where do you get the paper copies of that?
At your dealer. So like your dealer has them.
Okay.
I can call in NFA branch and say, hey, I need, or ATF, say, hey, I need X amount of Form 4s, and they just ship them to me.
Got it.
It's just like the old 4473s and anything paper form, they ship them to you for free. Now everything's going to electronic form, pretty much, right? They're trying to push people away from paper forms just because it's storage, right? Like they store these papers forever,
right?
So there's somewheres in Georgia or like wherever they hold them. I know they have some holding stuff in Georgia where there's like Connex buildings full of like forms for years, right?
Yeah.
And they have to go back in there and try to research it. Whereas now if it's on a database, like it's on cloud systems or something like that, it's a whole lot easier. I mean, you can store a whole Connex building on a thumb drive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
So it's like, it's no brainer. Let's do that. So they're trying to push everybody to that. And it's also like software is taking over. You don't have to have a live person sitting there typing in all the information. So if you would fill out the form, I'd have to communicate it over the telephone. That agent has to put it into the computer and then go through the background check.
Right.
Whereas now it just automatically transfers that information.
So talk about that real quick, right? So I think that, a lot of folks don't know what that means, right? So as soon as I fill out this form, right? Let's say it's a Form 4. Okay, so I'm buying a silencer, I paid the stamp, whatever. Now I've submitted this form online or by paper. Then what happens? Because there are a number of law enforcement departments that have to look at this thing before you get approved, right?
Yeah. So the difference between like buying a regular firearm, like most people go in, you fill out the form, and you get approved that day, and it's good. And you just fill out the form. That's it. You just gotta have your driver's license. This is a little bit more stuff, but it's not a lot. Like people come in, they think it's so much other things. You have to take a picture as a passport photo.
Right.
We just take a picture and upload it onto the eForms. It's super easy. I do it with an iPhone. And then you have to submit fingerprints, right? So you have to do your fingerprints. We have a fingerprint machine in-house that we can scan them and we send them off. There's two ways you can do them. You can either print them out and mail them in, or you can do like an EFT file, I think is what it's called, where you just upload it to the form directly, right? And that's it. But once you submit that, you have a copy of that submitted form, and you have to notify the chief law enforcement officer in your area, right? So easiest way we do it, we just notify the state police because it doesn't matter where you live at. It's notifying them because it's the whole state, right? Some people go directly to their sheriff. Some people go to their police chief or whatever it might be. It's just easier for us since we have some people from Karen Crow, some people from Acadiana area, some people from St. Martinville. Like it varies. We just go straight to the state police, and we don't have to worry about where you're living at that time. Right?
Yeah.
So it's just a little bit easier, like attorney generals or the state police, the commander or superintendent.
Right. And the way you do that, you have to actually mark that in your form, right? Like this is the chief law enforcement officer that you're notifying.
Right. Yeah. You have to let the ATF know who you're notifying. They would just want to know who it is.
Right.
And they don't have to accept it. They don't have to do anything. Way back then, they used to have to, for individual forms, they'd have to approve of you having that form or having that item, and then you get approved. Now you just have to let them know. So really you can walk in there with the papers, drop it off on the desk, and you did your due diligence to try to notify them.
Right. Okay.
So you're just letting them know, hey, I am submitting for this item, and I'm possibly going to get it.
Right. And I think, for the most part, if you're listing out of our area, then your gun store is going to know who that is, right? They're going to be able to give you guidance. Or if you use online like Silencer Shop or something like that, they know.
They do all that stuff, yeah. And if they don't, pick a different gun shop.
Yeah.
Sort, right? It's we're trying to make it easy to work because we understand how much of a headache this is. I remember buying my first silencer, I didn't know what to do. And it kind of scares people. They're like, man, it's this big, huge form, and I heard there's so many myths about it. It's not that much more. I mean, the only two things you have, it's just pretty much the same questions as in a 4473. If you go through the questions, the only difference is you have to have a passport photo and fingerprints.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
And wait the time.
Yeah. So that's good.
Yeah, it's not extra things. Don't get scared of it. Go in somewhere and they'll walk you through the whole system.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so perfect. So now, one thing you touched on that people kind of get wrapped around the handle about too is that, do I do this individually or do I need to have an NFA trust?
Yeah.
And in the past, people would do the NFA trust because the turnaround times for doing it through a trust were quicker.
And mainly it was because of the chief law enforcement officer. So if you do it individual, they had to approve you of doing it. So you pretty much had to go and sit in with the sheriff, whatever it was, and they interviewed you and see like, hey, why do you want this NFA item?
Right.
And can I trust you in order to do that? If you lived in a pro-gun area, like our sheriff here in Lafayette, it's like very pro-gun, where he's an avid shooter and things. So if you're a normal person and you don't have any,
you're not a criminal,
he'd probably approve it. But there's some places that wouldn't do that. If they're living in anti-gun places, the sheriff would never sign off on it. Like it doesn't matter who it is, right? He just automatically deny it. So they would go through the trust in order to do that, or an LLC. So you can have an LLC that owns it, same type of thing, right? It's a business entity or anything that would own the item. The pros about the trust part is that you can have multiple people on that trust that can have usage to that item, right? So that's what it kind of catches people's eyes. Like, well, if I'm in a hunting camp, or like, me and my brother's on this trust, or me and my family's on here, so where we can all use the item as we need to during hunting season. The downside is that it's more complicated, right? Because now, whenever you go and buy that item, you don't have to have just your fingerprints. You have to have everyone on that trust's fingerprints. They all have to come in order to do the paperwork, right? So in order to buy an item, if you have 5 people in the trust, you have to get all 5 of them in the gun store at one time, which is next to impossible, right? So it's very confusing. It's very difficult. So I usually tell people, like, hey, just do it individual now. Everything's fine. Like, you don't have to notify you don't have to go and get approved by the chief law enforcement officer. You just got to notify them, and that's it.
Right.
And usually silencers, like I said, they don't have increase in value. So if something happens to you and they have to submit it back to the NFA, like if your family's like, hey, I don't know what to do with this, I'll just give it back to ATF.
Right.
It's gone, and you don't have to worry about it. That's not that big of a deal, right? Like you're not out that much money. Things that I would tell people to kind of consider on a trust would be like machine guns, things that's going to go up in value, right? So like AR-15 lower right now is like probably $30,000, $35,000.
Yeah.
So eventually that's going to continue to rise up, right? Like whenever we bought it, like if you bought one in '86, it was probably like $1,000.
Not even, yeah.
So like, now it's 30 times the amount. So it's going to get even more whenever you pass away. So if there's a Form 5, I believe it's Form 5, that after you pass away, it's a non-tax form to where it transfers it from your name to their name. And they have like 6 months in doing it. But the issue is like, hey, you just had a loved one pass away. Usually people don't consider doing that at the time.
Right.
So they could get in some type of legal trouble from there. So if you have it in a trust, whereas one person passes away from that trust, there's another person that's in there that can automatically own it, and you're not like having to fill out any forms. You don't have to do anything. Right. So that's a benefit of a trust or an LLC. But I'd only recommend it if it's like increase in value of firearms, and keep the trust kind of small. Right. Don't put tons of people in the trust, because if one person violates anything, then you can get in trouble for that.
Right.
Too.
So now a lot of us had NFA Trust from a long time ago.
Yeah.
Right. And so have stuff in trust since, when trusts were the thing to do.
Yeah.
Right. So what do you recommend for people then if they have a trust and they want to buy something new? Do they, should they put it into the trust, particularly if it's like a silencer, an SBR type of thing, where it's more of a common issue, common item? Should they keep the trust going, or should they keep whatever's in trust and actually do individual now for new stuff?
That's what I would recommend. Just do it individual now.
Okay.
You have to keep the trust going, right? Because if you want to transfer it into your name, that's more of a headache. Like you got to fill out another $200 tax stamp,
right, and
transfer it into your name from the trust. That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
And the same thing the opposite way. So if you have it as an individual, you want to put it into a trust, it's another $200 tax stamp. So I'd say, hey, just keep trust going, and it is what it is, and whatever is new, if you want it faster, then do it individual. If you don't mind waiting and you say, hey, I just want everything in one location to where it makes it easier for me to track and have everything in that trust, then you could do the trust that way, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, most people like want it now, right? Like, hey, I buy a silencer, I want to get the silencer now before anything new comes out. So just do it individual and go from there. But it's kind of up to your choice.
I think the pitfall of having it individual, and it's not a pitfall, but it's the thing to consider is that if it's individual, then it is your, like, you can't really, give it to a family member to use or whatever. It is only for you. You're the only one touching it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So.
And it has, like, if you like leave and go out of town or something like that, like, it has to be locked up where they don't have access to it.
Correct.
Is what the ATF wants to see. So in some type of gun cabinet or some type of lockbox or gun safe where the other people in your house don't have like codes to that or keys to that safe.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So, and I think that's it. So then the decision between going individual or trust, but really, what you're saying is that when you purchase something that is an NFA item, it's really just more money. It's, and another form and a waiting period.
That's it. Yeah.
Right. So it's like one form. If you have a trust, I can tell you from experience, if you have a trust, it's going to be like a form, and then you have to update your trust and upload that. So that's, just a couple of steps, right? But really, you could go to Sentry Defense today, you could buy the item, and then, we'll pay the $200 tax stamp plus whatever the cost of the thing was, right? And then it's just the wait.
Yep.
Right? So you fill out one form, you get your fingerprints done, you wait, and then
You finish.
A month from now, because it's a good time to buy NFA items, you could have your stuff.
Yep. You get an email from the ATF, and we get an email also saying that it's been approved. You come in, you fill out the 4473 to transfer it out of your from my books to your name, and you take it home that day.
There you go.
Yep. So another thing that people constantly ask is like, hey, what do I need to keep with this item? Like, used to be, we'd recommend printing out a copy of the approved stamp, or they used to mail you actually a physical stamp, with an approved letter, and we'd say, hey, make a copy of that, keep it in your gun bag or something like that to where you have access to it. Nowadays, with them emailing you a stamp, they don't mail you a physical stamp anymore. It's just an email.
Right.
So they have to accept that, right? Like, that's what it is.
Yeah.
So I just archive that email in my email address, and then I can access it anywhere.
Yeah,
right?
keep it on your phone.
Yeah, keep it on my phone also. But like, even if I don't have my phone, if I have access to a computer, I could log into my email at anywheres. Like, it's pretty much like on the cloud, right?
Yeah.
And you just archive that email. You go to your archives, grab it, and you can show the ATF agent that.
Okay.
Yep.
Very good.
And there'd be only like the ATF agent that would ask for it. Like.
So there's a misnomer, right? Because people think that anybody can just ask, hey, do you have a form for that? Hey,
that's right. Yeah, you don't have to show it to them. Like the ATF, you have to do that, but like police or anything like that, like, you don't have to show it to them legally. It'd probably be a better idea if you did, and if they really want to, they can call ATF, because they all have like every department usually has big department has some type of ATF person they work with.
Yeah.
Right? It's like a liaison that goes back and forth. So they'll get them involved, and they'll go in like, all right, now I need to see your trust or your stamp, and then you go and do that.
Yeah. No, I'm not talking about that. I mean, clearly, whatever the police ask for, generally, is what you want to do, right? More what I'm thinking is, you have people at gun ranges, that aren't Sentry, that are like, hey, the person at the front, like, hey, do you have paperwork for that or whatever? It's like, you don't owe them anything. Like, you don't need to show them. You don't have
to show them. Like, they might have it in their rules, or it's like, hey, you can't shoot here unless you have paperwork. And like, I don't know why they do that. It's, I guess, just them trying to be on the safe side. But like, really, it doesn't prove, as a gun store owner, like, it doesn't prove to me anything. Right? Like, if you have a stamp or not have a stamp, like, you're still going to do whatever you're going to do. I'm not a police officer. I'm not the ATF agent. Like, it's not my job to go around and policing things. Right. Like, I don't have time to do that. So
yeah. And then if they don't, then what are you going to do?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like, you don't want to have put yourself in that situation.
Yeah. And I guess that's part of the thing is, like, if they're there for some reason, but it's like, it still doesn't fall back on me. It's like, it's not my fault that you have an illegal firearm,
Right.
right? Like it's in your possession, not in my possession.
Right.
And the second anything gets like sketchy that gets shipped to me, like I instantly call ATF.
Right.
Like don't ship anything to me sketchy.
Right.
Like I had a gun that was transferred. It didn't have any serial numbers on it. It was like a thing you buy like off of Wish.com or something like that, right?
Really?
It was like, yeah, it was from China. Like it had Chinese boxes on
Oh,
it.
jeez.
And it was made to shoot these like 22 caliber blanks or something like that. So they were like, yeah, we don't have to have a serial number on it. I was like, I put it on the box, do not transfer.
Yeah.
Like I called my ATF agent and was like, hey, this got shipped to me. You need to come pick it up.
Right.
Like I don't want it.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not transferring to this guy because he didn't have to. And the guy, like I called him and I was like, hey, like I'm not transferring this to you. I don't know what you need to do with whoever it is, but like I'm not transferring it to you. I'm not sending it back. I already called ATF. They're coming to pick it up. All that stuff.
Right.
He's like, yeah, no problem. He's like, I actually only paid $20 for it, and I was trying to do the right thing because they said like you can ship it directly to your house. And the guy's like, no, that seems sketchy, right?
Right.
And he's like, I'm gonna ship it to a gun store.
Right.
And he got me involved into it. I was like, yeah, don't do that again.
Yeah.
But don't anything that seems sketchy, it probably is, and like
Right.
it's not worth it. Like,
Yeah.
let it go. So he's like, yeah, it was $20. I don't care. Like I'll lose the $20. You know,
Jeez.
it doesn't matter. So
Wow.
yeah, I'm not gonna transfer anything that's like sketchy like
No,
that, right?
that's ridiculous. Like,
It's not
wow.
worth it. So,
No.
but I'm not gonna go around and like look for your stamp or any of that stuff.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, all right. What else do people need to know about buying an NFA item?
That's pretty much it. Like selection would be the next thing. Like making sure you select the right gun or whatever, silencer or whatever you're gonna do. But it's not that much of a process more than just buying a regular firearm.
Right. Okay. Well, very good. Well, thank you. Hit us up on Spotify, YouTube, Twitter, wherever you find us. Thank you all for listening. Share the show with people. This is a pretty informative one, and I think the last thing I'll say is go out there and buy an NFA item.
That's it.
It'll be good. All right.